reason I changed this, and I'm putting this on the record for our residents, but I'm also putting it on the record for Channel 9 News. So there's a dual purpose. If you haven't seen the IT report, you should. Okay? Take a look at it. So I just not, okay, to discuss America Ohio 250 celebration tonight or our successful bid. I will deal with that next month. But for time constraints, I felt this was more important. So, however, due to inaccurate and misleading report by Dan Monk, WCPO IT reporter, I must address our residents and council members with my official response. WCPO claims to uphold high journalistic standards, but I disagree based on their report. Let me highlight some of the principles from WCPO's parent organization, WE-Script's journalism guidelines. These are the ethical standards that Channel 9 professes to follow. And not all of them. There's 10.5 pages of it. Okay, I chose to deal with the following. Honesty. They state in their document, we're careful in the use of archival material, so not to mislead people or leave the impression that archival material is gathered as part of current reporting. There's a second issue that I identified. I could have identified more. That deals with editing. They claim that we use quotes or sound bites to best tell the story, but never change the intent or meaning of what the source said. Partial quotes are acceptable. When using only a portion of a quote, it does not change the meaning or context. This is what they say they're going to do. Unscheduled interviews. Unscheduled interviews, a manager must grant prior approval for a journalist to plan an unscheduled interview where the source does not realize they are about to be interviewed and will likely be unprepared and defensive. Fact checking. According to their document, they make every effort to fact check and verify what the source has told us. If the source cannot provide any supporting information or documentation, we avoid using that source. And the last area that I believe they fail their objective is the source itself. We consider, is the source a trustworthy voice? If the source has a discernible bias or agenda, we should explain that clearly to the audience. None of that was done in the IT report. So, despite those guidelines, WCPO failed to adhere to them. As mayor of the village of Cleves, I do not believe we owe any media outlet an interview that's requested at 2:30 p.m. on July 3rd, 2025, a holiday weekend, with no advance warning. Dan Monk spoke to Justin Havey, our village administrator, on July 1st, 2025. For about 20 minutes on the phone. Mr. Havey answered all questions that he asked about the clean court, the proposed levy, and provided budgetary documents. But when Justin was asked for the interview, he declined it. I fully support his refusal based on WCPO's inaccurate report about his time as a police officer at Elmwood Place. Our law director has solid evidence that should have led to its removal or an updated article, which is also stated in their code. That they will remove it or they will alter it. From what I understand, Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they've had that information for quite a while. But they have not corrected the past. In fact, they used that same report in the IT media or report that just aired. So I want to address specific misstatements made by the IT report. They claim that we refused an on-air interview. That claim is 100% false. Dan Monk, on July 3rd, 2025 at 11:26 a.m., called Mr. Havig from a private number and said, "Just so you know, this is Dan Monk and you're live and on camera." Mr. Havig spent some time, not very long, explaining to him certain things that I don't remember exactly what they were, Justin, maybe you could share that, but explain to him information that he was requesting. Am I correct in that?
Yes, I led him to the appropriate parties to answer his question.
And those parties were Rob, Merkel, and me. Dan Monk then emailed us, and I'm referring to Rob, at 11:38 a.m. requesting an on-camera interview. I responded at 12:05 p.m. and I questioned the ethics of his approach. How did I do that? Basically, what I asked him for was to give me the name of the journalism school and the class on ethics, and showed that that was an appropriate way of conducting an interview. That is a question that it remains unanswered yet today. I would have given him an interview if that happened, but he did not. So instead, in his report, he claims that we refused. There's another issue with that. Rob also offered an interview with WCPO, but there were conditions. One is it was a live interview and unedited. In their report, they never mentioned any of those things. They simply said we refused to give them an interview. That is absolutely false. They also claim in the report that we were going to issue arrest warrants for grass cutting. WCPO falsely reported there is never going to be an arrest warrant for not cutting your grass. That has never been discussed, and it will never be considered. Where that came from, I have no idea, but that's not anything that's been discussed in the Village of Cleves. Now I'm going to move on to their sources. Who is their source? The source is a Cleves resident, and he was my opponent for mayor in 2023. I am not mentioning his name. I never mentioned his name during the campaign, and I refuse to do so today. This resident, though, is known by almost everybody in the Village of Cleves for self-aggrandizing, creating hyperbole, being anti-Cleves Police Department, failing to maintain his property, and above all, hating Justin Havig. That has been demonstrated time and time again. In fact, WCPO was present the night that Justin was hired, where he threatened him in council chambers. That was actually recorded by the WCPO reporter that night. So going back to September, Justin also made Dan Monk aware of the fact that he had the audio clip from that reporter. And he asked for it, Justin made it available to him, and he has never picked it up. So that's the source that they're referring to. That same resident has a historical bias against the Cleves Police Department. How do I know that? Because he was very active in 2020. I actually have pictures, and I know it's out there on social media where he was protesting against the Cleves Police, and in particular against Justin Havig. If that's not a bias, then that they claim that they take into consideration on their sources, then they haven't done a very good job as fact checking. This resident also has a disregard for maintaining his own property, even when it devalues his neighbor's property. WCPO reporters could have done some research on this. That didn't happen. They could have talked to residents who know him and understand him. So they disregarded their standard to not use a source that is unreliable or biased. Unverified claims. WCPO aired unverified claims by the same resident that I campaigned to bring back the police department. Now, Linda Bolton called me this morning and said, "That never happened." That's absolutely correct. It never happened. Neither Channel 9 nor any of our residents have ever seen any campaign literature supporting this. Similarly, his claim that of 1,200 signatures on a petition to fire Justin Hayden is misleading. That was a change.org petition. Those petitions are globally distributed and can be filled out multiple times by the same individual. Any journalist that is doing any type of fact checking should know that. I can actually tell you who's one of the biggest funders of that, but that's not my purpose, because I went ahead and did the research on it. But I will say this, the fact that there is no internal measures and the fact that anybody can fill it out and they can fill it out multiple times anywhere across the world makes it statistically unreliable. And here's the kicker. Garnering 1,200 signatures out of the entire world is insignificant and it's meaningless. Yet somehow or other, there was no mention in this IT investigative report, any of that. I mentioned his name, the same resident, okay, claimed last year that he was being harassed by our zoning department. And Mr. Monk questioned that to Mr. Hayden. He was given at that time, he claimed that he was gonna be, I don't know, if it was arrested or whatever he was claiming. But all he got was a warning. He didn't even get a citation. He got a warning to cut his grass. Excuse me. I have those documents. I also have the vulgar and profane email he sent Ed Lindenschmidt, and so does Dan Monk. He has a copy of it. He has seen it. That alone ought to give him some indication about how reliable that source is.
Did he see that before the interview?
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
a long time ago, last September.
So he knows he doesn't care.
Well, I'm gonna go on further than that. Okay? What about the misrepresentation about the council meeting? And in this one, he's taking video footage from our December council meeting. And in that meeting, the council they were discussing the police department, whether to bring it back, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm.
So they took footage of Gary Walters questioning the council members as you were considering that legislation and questioning the village administrator, okay? In other words, the whole council was discussing, but we took one section that Gary Walters brought up about whether the guy was gonna be wearing street armor, would he have a gun, okay? And Justin responded to that appropriately that night. The answer is yes. They are a full-fledged police officer with all police powers. And yes, when you go into a situation, you don't know what you're gonna face. You have a right to defend yourself. But they only took that one little clip, and it's almost as if whatever else was discussed didn't matter. They talked about the fact that they want to keep things accurate and in context. To do that, you would have to take the entire conversation. That wasn't done. Now, I will make one statement in addition to that. What the council did that night was a practice that was never done under the Myers administration. There was very little discussion. And quite frankly, if you were a village resident, you probably ought not to ask a question. We have tried to change all of that. Now, I want to be clear for the public, because they make it sound like everybody's confused about what the role is of our village administrator and town marshal. So I want to be clear. At no point in time did this council put into an ordinance that Justin would be acting as a police officer. He is an administrative head, okay? And no, even though it was implied in there and probably even said, he will not be carrying a gun, okay, in his everyday role. He knows what that role is. So let me be clear. We're not up and operating just yet. We still have obstacles that we have to overcome. And those obstacles, until they are overcome, that means a lease terminal, RCIC terminal, a Bureau of Motor Vehicles terminal, we can't totally function, nor can we develop policies, which is going to be his number one job as to how our police department will support the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, okay? And what role they'll play as far as detectives are concerned. Mr. Havey serves as the liaison to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, our primary law enforcement. They did get that one right in their report. They remain our primary law enforcement agency. But Justin will supervise and assign cases to our investigators that the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department does not and cannot deal with. I believe, based on what I saw, their use of the Elmwood Place video was sensationalizing. It's a disproven video. And they did this while we seek support for a safety levy to fund our police and fire service. At best, that is irresponsible journalism. Finally, as mayor of the village, please, I want to unequivocally express my and council's full support for Mr. Havey as our village administrator and village marshal. While we appreciate WCPO's efforts to provide information about our village, we do not appreciate their continued report on unfounded claims about Mr. Havey's past. And I want to be clear, it will not alter our unwavering support for his leadership. Additionally, WCPO claimed that they filed numerous public records requests for his background check. That is also false. I went through today and I took a look at all the communication. The only one I could find was one, and I went back and referenced Mr. Merkel's compliance and what he sent them. So that also is false. They have all public records. They have been fulfilled, including the only one we didn't have at the time, which is the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation report. They have that report. They need nothing else. So I want to be clear to our public, and I want to be clear to WCPO television. They have ethical guidelines to follow. As a village, all we ask is that they follow and report accurately and honestly. And that when they are getting sources from our resident, they talk to other residents, not just the one who was a mayoral candidate who got beat with 25% of the vote. That's all I need to say tonight. I thank you for listening. I thank those at home, and I would be glad to answer any questions anybody might have.
Can you sue them?
Well, I don't think the diligence is, and quite frankly, when you're dealing with the media, you have to prove malice. You have to prove malice. And that is a tough standard to do. And any lawsuit is costly.
I think you just spelled out malice.
Well, I think I did too, but that doesn't mean you're gonna prevail in a court.
But it can't be done.
Can you sue the guy that told him that stuff? We know who he is.
I think, Mary, to answer your question, I think all we can do is what I just did. If there's something else out there, I don't know what it is.
I think given some of the correspondence that I understand has been sent to you, you should consider training.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna talk, but I came prepared tonight just in case that resident came. And I have all the emails. Every time I send a message out to the residents, which he gets, I will get a very vulgar email response. I never respond to those, but I have kept them, and for the record, they are public record. So I don't know how they would look at that individual as a reliable source. Just doesn't make any sense. And I'm sort of finished unless you have questions.
Well, I would like to add to that the process that we followed to hire a village administrator was uniquely in depth. The interview process was a more complex process that I've ever seen in 50 years in the workforce. Thorough background checks were done. We did not in any way, shape, or form, make a hasty decision. I mean, Chuck, you took that to a new level as far as what I'm used to. So all I can tell you is, I think that I drove my support 100% behind our decision. And don't have any doubts at all that we thoroughly did our homework on this. That's my opinion for what it's.
Thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate that.
And I can say that, I looked at a lot of stuff in his background when, he was being hired. And I'm retired from law enforcement. I was in supervision. I've since helped administration with HR issues, personnel file issues, that kind of stuff. I've been contracted with stuff. And when I looked at and viewed his personnel file at Elmwood, I was kind of befuddled because all of the incidents that Greg Cheatham put out there initially on this case that Dan Monk still chased from years ago, there was definitely things wrong with them. I mean, the complaints didn't have the officer that took them. Had no idea how they got in there. Nothing was done, never investigated. There was question to some of their validity in the first place. And so I knew the administration at Elmwood when he was there. So I called up the old chief. I called and talked to the lieutenant. They said, no, there shouldn't have been anything like that. But they said that the mayor at the time was putting stuff in there despite the law director telling him not to. It eventually got stopped, but then the new mayor that came in that had a beef with Justin for no reason really at all, fired him and his personnel file got riddled with stuff. So I went to the mayor and spoke to the mayor and pointed it out. I also spoke to their law director. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, this ruins someone's career and has Channel 9 pounding a drum. And, I mean, and Dan Monk goes back and pounds the same drum from 2020, was it? 18?
Oh, geez.
And no, that's the Dan Monk's chase. It's absolutely clear. But I can tell you that some of the stuff in there, I directly prove is false. The mayor has since, because you can't remove stuff, the mayor has since put a letter in there exonerating him from all of the things. So that's where it stands now. And Channel 9 was careful in their reporting, so I venture to say they might even know.
Unfortunately, there's collateral damage when that kind of stuff happens. Even in what the written report has, and I didn't address those tonight because there's legal ramifications with that, so I was careful of what I addressed tonight. There's more from in that article than what I addressed here tonight. And I think I gave you enough of an idea of just how bad that was. So, under those circumstances, okay, Rob was very clear about we're willing to do an on-camera interview in his email. We have that documentation. They chose not to include it.
They chose to say that I made a statement on behalf of the village and took a portion of the email that had nothing to do with any of that and put it in their code. It was an email, it wasn't a statement, and it was offering to do an on-camera interview with the mayor. And he never responded, and I sent that at 5:17 p.m. on July 3rd.
Well, he's doing a good job, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, he is doing a
He's
good
doing a
job.
good job,
He's doing a fantastic.
yeah.
Unfortunately, this kind of stuff takes it for people.
Yeah. Well, they
And
paid,
for
they paid
you,
me
I
to look at it.
feel bad about that.
Thank you.
It's a shame, you don't deserve it. And, I think it's unfortunate.
I appreciate it.